what's up? It's Mac. I'm happy to be here, back in Austin for this episode. Also, this is the first episode sans hat, so really giving you guys a treat with that. The smiley face looks like it's coming out of my head. I'll scoot slightly over. For some reason, everything just kind of feels off. And as usual, if you're listening to the podcast version, you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. Did get a different bucket for this, red and black. So that's pretty special, doing a lot of special things for you guys. This episode's going to be kind of divided into two parts, but in reality, who knows what's going to happen because I do have a tendency to ramble. Nevertheless, those two parts. First part, I'm going to talk about the episode and just kind of some things and thoughts and stuff like that. Won't be able to go as behind the scenes as I typically do because, as you know, I was not behind the scenes this time. I was not in any of the scenes. I was not related to the scenes. I was not involved at all. But I was in Venice, and that's what part two is going to be about. I'm going to be talking about the vibe in Venice, what it was like getting off the show, how all of that worked, stuff like that. So it should still be pretty juicy, so stick around for that. And then just kind of who knows what's going to happen in the meantime along the way. But I've been getting a lot of questions about whether I would have known it was Venice or not. A lot of people have been either just kind of declaring like, oh, if Mac had been there, she would have been able to figure it out. And then a lot of people have also just been asking me personally if I would have been able to figure it out. And here's the truth. I have no idea if I would have been able to figure it out. I think it depends a lot on what information I had. You know, like as a viewer watching it on the TV, also beforehand, I knew it was in Venice because like I said, I went to Venice with the whole cast, just didn't see any of them. I knew it was Venice. So there's kind of a lot of like, was it confirmation bias where it was like, you know, I was looking for things and it was like, oh yeah, that does point to Venice. But had I gone in completely blind on the bus, it's a little bit harder to say. I will say I would have not gotten any of the kayaking clues on my own, I don't think. Like, I'd been told by castmates like, oh, like we had to like pick the odd one out on this kayaking challenge situation and it was really difficult. And so I was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna try to figure it out. I'd even been told the answers before, didn't remember any of them. But even with, you know, that predisposition, was not able to figure any of them out. I don't know how much time they had at each checkpoint. Like, I don't know if I would have been able to get there on any of them. I for sure wouldn't have on the musician one because I don't really know music very well. So definitely would have got that one wrong. The city one, I've heard of all of those cities. I do have a problem with that one though because Bled is not an island. Bled is like smack dab in the middle of Slovenia. Not right in the middle, it's kind of more northwest. I've been to Bled multiple times. Bled's one of my favorite places. It's literally not an island, it's a city. It has an island in it, but like, you don't go for the island. You might take a boat out to the island, but there's like a church on it, on like one little part. Like you take a boat to the island and you're there for 30 minutes and then you do all of the other many activities that are on Bled. I wouldn't associate Bled with being an island. So I don't know if I would have gotten that one wrong. Or right, I mean. I think I would have gotten it wrong. I might have thought Ljubljana, that is a capital. I've also been to Ljubljana like 3 or 4 times. Love Slovenia. Slovenia is one of my favorite countries. I would have been so pissed if they had gone to Slovenia without me. Actually, however, though, I would have been able to go to Slovenia because the recently eliminated cast member goes to the next city. I'll talk about that later. But would have been pissed if they'd gotten to do something cool in Slovenia, especially Bled. But I think I would have thought Ljubljana, that's the capital, so I'm going to go with that one, which I think, yeah, that was the correct answer, but I wouldn't have gotten the correct takeaway information from that because I wouldn't have been thinking island. I think I would have maybe got the floating one had I been thinking about it long enough. I don't know how much time they got to think about it. I don't know like what sense of urgency there was, like if it was like, oh, you got 30 seconds, you know, like the Orvieto thing with me and Biggie, like I got the tea one wrong, right? I thought it was olive oil, but like we had like 1 second and then it was like you start running. But if I had like sat there for a whole minute, I would have gotten tea, I think. But so yeah, I hope I would have got the floating one. And that's the only one that I think I feel more than 50% confidence that I would have gotten correct for the right reason. And then so based off of that, I know Venice is the floating city, So maybe I would have made that deduction, right? I would have known that they were traveling south from Salzburg. I would have seen the mountains. I would have known that those are, you know, the Alps, because they don't look like the Julian Mountains up in Slovenia. Those mountains look very different. They're a lot smaller. And I also wouldn't have thought it was Northwest Croatia, because I've spent so much time in Northwest Croatia randomly. Shout out Maddie and Lucas. They had a house there for like a year. It was so cool. It was like I stayed there, and it was kind of like a launch point almost. It was incredible. Anyway, that's actually why I knew Salzburg, is because I was going to go from Pula to Salzburg. We're not talking about Salzburg anymore. Anyway, I would have known that that wasn't Northwest Croatia, and I don't think I would have thought it was the Julian Mountains in Slovenia. So hopefully I would have been like, okay, we're probably in like, you know, northeast-ish Italy, because we've been traveling south. Those are the Alps. The closest big city is Venice. Also, we have this floating clue. So I hope I would have gotten it, but who knows? You never know. I could have gotten it wrong. It also could have been a situation where they just told each team, you got one correct, but they didn't tell you which one. Like, I have no idea what information was provided to each team. So who knows if I would have even known which one I got correct? You know, it's kind of one of those things where it's like hard to say. Had I been told the correct answers, floating, sinking, and bridge, 1,000% I would have known that was Venice. That seems super obvious. But I don't know if I would have had that information. So that's kind of hard to say. So based off of that, kind of up in the air. I think my best shot, honestly, this episode would have been knowing that we went south. I would have been easily able to rule out Croatia. The one tricky thing about Slovenia is, even though those mountains look different, that crystal blue water does look like a lot of the rivers in Slovenia. And when I was in Slovenia, I did go on a rafting trip in through a river that looked a lot like that. So I think there's a chance I would have gotten a little bit confused. Hard to say though. Also, it's important to note, I think, that like the bus doesn't travel in the most convenient path from point A to point B. I'm not sure if I've talked about this yet. I have a burp coming in. It was a small burp. But they did kind of a lot of this type of driving. So like it was hard to piece together, and it wasn't that dramatic, right? But for this, I imagine they kind of did one of these rather than just going straight down. So that might have maybe thrown me off a little bit. I really do think, though, that seeing the Alps, assuming Northwest Italy, maybe getting floating from that riddle clue, I think I would have been able to put it together. But it's hard to say. It's super hard to say. Also, the other clues, there were lions in a lot of places. I know that the Venetian flag is like dark red and gold and has like a lion with wings on it, and then these like other like stripy pattern things. I studied the crests of a lot of major cities in my like week and a half to prepare for this show, and that was one of them, and I did know that, so I did know lions were involved. But like, you just put me somewhere and show me some lions, my immediate thought is absolutely not going to be Venice. That crest on the door, though, looks literally nothing like the Croatian flag, so I have no idea what Peter is talking about. Like, the Croatian flag is very notably, has the red and white checkerboard. It has the red, white, and blue stripes, the red, white checkerboard thing, and then like 5 smaller crests on top of it. I don't believe any of those have lions in them. Let me double check that. So I'm not lying to you guys. Croatian flag. Because there is one with an animal. Right, it's a goat. Maddie will be upset with me that I didn't know that off the top of my head, because I know... Oh, wait, no, there is one with 3 lions. Wait, this is so funny. There's this building in Zagreb that's like super cool looking, and it has all these tiles on the roof, and they have a tile of what's supposed to be a lion or something. And Maddie and I were walking around one day, and we stumbled past a walking tour, and the guide on the walking tour was talking about how the person who like made the design had never seen a lion before, so it's like supposed to be a lion, but it doesn't look anything like a lion. Anyway, I wouldn't have remembered that at the time. But nevertheless, I guess to Peter's credit, in some sense, there are 3 lions on the Croatian flag on one of the crests for like the region of, I want to say it was Dalmatia. I could be wrong on that, and I'm not going to fact check it. But nevertheless, that lion on that door looks nothing like the lions on the Croatian flag. I'm really kind of digressing here. Nevertheless, I would have not looked at that door and thought Croatia. I also would not have thought Venice. I don't actually know what that picture on the door was supposed to be, because it doesn't look like the Venetian flag. Couldn't really figure it out. The other big clue was the map of Venice on the war board thing that they were playing on. And like, that could go either way. Like, when he said that was Venice, I was like, oh yeah, for sure that's Venice. But had I just seen that swirly looking picture, it's kind of hard to say because it kind of just looked like a weird design. I'm not 100% sure that I would have thought that was Venice. Again, it's easy looking backwards knowing that I know that it's Venice and seeing that and being like, oh yeah, that's Venice. But had I just seen that and had I had no other information, I'm not sure I would have clocked that as Venice. All of that to say, I don't think I would have gone home this episode because I would not have put Croatia, and I don't think I would have put Slovenia. I think I would have put Northern Italy. So I think I would have gotten there, but there was like nothing, like it wasn't like a Salzburg situation where I would have been like 100%, this is Venice, I know it, locking in. Oh, I forgot about the postcard, Bridge of Sighs. Had I seen that postcard, I would have known Bridge of Sighs. I've seen that, again, I've been to Venice probably 8 times, and I've seen that bridge every single time. Had I seen a picture of that bridge, 100%, I would have been like, Bridge of Sighs, we're in Venice. But who's to say if I would have been given access to that postcard? And like, Shane and Rick clearly did not recognize that as the Bridge of Sighs. And so even had like other people gotten it, I don't think that information would have gotten back to me in another Salzburg related situation where everybody just leaks all the information. So I would have had to see the postcard to know Bridge of Sighs, to know Venice. All of that to say, once again, I think I would have gotten to northeastern Italy. It's super hard to say though. So everybody who was saying without a doubt, oh, Mac would have known this, you could be right, but you also could be wrong. And the same with me. I could have been right, I could have been wrong. Who's to say? Who knows? Not me. It's so much easier watching as a viewer because you have all of the information. When you're on the bus, you don't. And you also see a lot of other things that aren't shown. Like things that you might think are a clue, but aren't like one of the dedicated clues. And so it's so easy to kind of trick yourself and get locked in on something that is incorrect and was not ever meant to be a clue, and then focus solely on that. So who's to say? I think I would have got there. I would have absolutely been closer than Split. I do think Split was, I don't think she thought they were in Split. I do think that was intentional, an intentional exit, but we won't get into that. Now, let's talk about my trip to Venice, okay? I've mentioned already, I've been to Venice, I think 8 times. Venice is my least favorite place that I think I've ever traveled to. And for some reason, I've gone there so many times. And that is because it has a very centrally located airport, and also a lot of buses stop over there. So if you're going from like West to Eastern Europe, which I've done a lot because it's often cheaper from the US to fly into Western Europe, and then bus over to the East, or take a flight to Venice, spend a day in Venice, and then fly to Romania or whatever. I've done stuff like that quite a bit. So I've spent like 1 or 2 days at a time in Venice, many times. Hate it. Absolutely hate it. In fact, when I was eliminated in Salzburg, Jeffrey, off camera, was like, you're lucky because you guys are going to, and I'm really upset at this point, right? We saw me crying. Like, I'm very upset that I'm eliminated. And, Jeffrey was like, you got really lucky because, like, you're going to get to spend a couple days in, like, one of the best places ever. And I was like, holy shit, like, we got to be going to Slovenia. Like, that's my favorite place. I love Slovenia because we're not going to Turkey, and that's my other favorite place. So we got to be going to Slovenia. It's close by. That would be incredible. And then he was like, you're going to Venice. And I was like, you're joking. Like, this is salt in the wound. You're taking me to Venice? Worst possible thing. Worst possible place. There's nothing to do in Venice. I don't get why people like Venice at all. There's literally nothing to do. You see a canal? Great. You're done. You've seen everything. Everything is outrageously overpriced. There's no authentic Italian anything. Venice at this point currently is for tourism. Everything is curated for tourists. Like, there's no way to get like an authentic experience there, except, maybe if you travel out to like one of the other little islands, like you're like a Murano situation. But then at that point, you're like not on the Venetian island. The canals, all of that stuff, the boats, whatever, it's boring. You stay there for an hour, you get it. Okay, there's literally nothing to do in Venice but look at the boats or get on a boat. You can drink a glass of wine. You can do that anywhere in Italy. Hey, guess what? You can do that anywhere in the world. Get Italian food. You can get good Italian food pretty much anywhere in the world. There's nothing special about Venice. I hate it. Okay, however, I was going through an extremely emotional situation. I talked about this last episode, how all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I had emotions. It was very foreign to me. And it was like, I talked about this a little bit last episode, like everything that I had suppressed, it felt like I had all come up and I was dealing with it all at once. And I just like couldn't pull it together. I was so emotional and I just felt insane. I felt crazy. I was bawling constantly. Like I was in my head, I was like going through things that had happened years ago that were traumatic that I just never dealt with. And it was like, all of these things were very real and very present. And I just felt insane in my head because I'd never felt all of this sadness and upsettedness before. And I felt like I was losing my mind. And so what I was supposed to do was basically spend a day in Venice, because that's how they have to like organize the flights back, right? Because they don't have a lot of heads up on who's going home. And so they have to be like, where are you flying to? What's going on? They have to do a psych check, blah, 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 do all these things. And while I was there, what I needed to do was fly to Montana. I left my car in Montana and then I needed to drive my car down to Austin. And that's a pretty big drive. And I talked to the therapist at first because they do a psych check, and he was a man. So I was like, I'm not telling this guy anything because I don't trust him because he's literally a man. I just got screwed over by a man. You think I'm going to be emotional with a man right now? Absolutely not. So I didn't tell him anything. I was like, yeah, I'm doing great. It sucks. It's a bummer that I lost, but whatever, I'm doing great. But then as time went by throughout my day there, I was like, I'm actually, turns out, not doing great. I'm doing horrible. This is the worst I've ever been doing. And I ended up calling one of the executive producers, and I was like, you can't put me on a plane right now. I can't be alone right now. Like, to be on a plane and then have to drive for 4 days from Montana to Texas, like, I am not good. Which I was actually really proud of myself for doing that because, like, that was the first time that I'd ever on my own reached out to somebody and been like, hey, I'm not okay, and, like, I need to talk to somebody and this is serious. And what was really cool was that they listened to me. I was so afraid of making that call, one, because I was like so embarrassed because I didn't want it to be perceived that I was dying because I lost a game, because that had nothing to do with it. Like, what I was going through was so much deeper than that, and it just all happened to be brought out by this. But I was so scared to make that call because I didn't want to just sound like a freaking loser being like, I lost a game, I'm really sad, I can't be alone, because it wasn't like that. But I called and was like, I can't be alone right now, like, I have to stay here. And I had told her previously, like, are you seriously taking me to Venice? Like, do you guys hate me? Like, this is the worst possible place. So she knew I hated Venice. She knew that this wasn't me trying to score a couple days in Venice. I would never do that. This was a nightmare to me. But nevertheless, she listened and was like, okay, here's what you need to do. You need to call the therapist back, the psychologist, and tell the truth. Like, this is literally his job. He's going to listen to you. And what he will do is then call NBC and say she needs to delay her flight for a few days. But, like, unfortunately, like, this is how you have to do it. I believe you. I'm going to do everything I can, but, like, this is the step that you need to take. And so I did that. I called him back and I was like, hey, man, like, I was just joking earlier. I'm actually having a really hard time. And I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And he was like, I'll make the calls. And so then I ended up staying in Venice. I think it was 3 days. So it was 2 more days beyond this day. And what was really cool was, I feel like he got me instantly, which I was like not expecting that at all. Like, he understood who I was as a person, what I was going through, which once again was like very validating that, like, if you reach out to people, people will care, like, people will show up. And again, I'd never really experienced that because of me, not because I have shitty people who surround me, because I have time and time again chosen not to let people care about me because it was too scary. And he made the call. I didn't have to go back immediately, but the next day, day 2 of Venice, he texted me this really long text, and I actually meant to pull it up for this to read it, but I forgot. But he sent me this really long message that was like written as a clue kind of from Jeffrey, and he was like, the premise of it was like, it's going to be really good for you to not just like wallow, like you don't want to just constantly distract yourself, but you want to like kind of have something to do, like go out, get some fresh air, like force yourself to walk around, force yourself to be kind of around other people, and talk to people and stuff like that. But he was also like, but I know you're not just gonna go do that, so I'm gonna give you a riddle kind of. So he wrote this long thing, and it was like basically like go find all of the leaning towers of Venice. Like he was like, you started this journey, in Italy, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, something, something, something. But did you know that there's also several leaning towers in Venice? How many can you find? And like take a picture at each one or something like that. So it was like a task to do. And I had a chaperone, and she and I hung out and we talked, and it was great. And there were like 3 or 4 leaning towers of Venice. I had no idea. I walked probably 30,000 steps that day. Found all the leaning towers. Posted a picture of me with some of them on my Instagram if you're interested in the Leaning Towers of Venice. But it ended up being like a really wholesome, fun day. I really enjoyed it. It was great to get out. I was able to be distracted, but it wasn't like a big distraction, so I could still think and process, what I was doing, and I could still talk to somebody. But I wasn't just like sitting in bed in the hotel all day, just crying all day. So it was really good. I thought it was a really cool, like, task, a really cool, like, therapy response, and I'd never done therapy before. I typically don't trust men, especially not with my emotions. That's crazy. And like I don't know, I feel like it was just absolutely perfect in conjunction with that producer. Like their response, both absolutely perfect. I felt so validated, like as a person and in my emotions, and it was really amazing. One cool thing is I saw the bus drive by on the floaty thing. And I was really trying to, with my chaperone, be like, oh, we should just hang around here, because I just kind of wanted to run into them. I thought that would be kind of silly. But it was literally her job to make sure I did not run into anybody on the cast. So that did not happen. However, I did run into Kim the day before. We knew it was going to happen, and she'd already been eliminated, obviously, so it was okay. But I did get to get dinner with Kim, and it was cool just talking to her, because we were both not in the same place emotionally, but like, it's a bummer to be kicked off of that, because as I talked about a lot last episode, it's just such a unique experience that nobody else understands, and like she understood it. And so like just getting to have dinner and talk about like how amazing the whole thing was and how much we loved it and how much we learned and like all these things we weren't expecting. And Kim is just hilarious and just so fun to be around. So that was a really cool experience. Anyway, this trip to Venice ended up being my favorite trip to Venice. Which is kind of ironic because I was so sad the whole time, but also like it was just like continued further proof that like people will show up to care about me if I let them. And that wasn't, something that only happened on the bus. That this is something that can happen in real life too. And so it was nice to have that validation. It was nice to see that happen. And it was really nice. Then I flew to London before I flew to Montana, and my flight was canceled while I was there, which is great because I was actually dilly-dabbling in the airport and thought I missed my flight, but then it turns out that I just got lucky that it had been canceled. So that was perfect. So then I had a day in London, and I didn't do anything, but I got a beer and got some food. And I've also been to London a ton, so whatever. Didn't really miss anything there. But did go to a really cool pub, but that's not important. A lot of people have also been asking me, I'm changing the subject now. A lot of people have been asking who I was rooting for to win at that point. And at that point, interestingly, it was Biggie, which I feel like doesn't really make any sense because he was a decent portion of the reason why I left. But I really wanted him to win. Like, he really was my best friend on the bus. And even though I did at the time kind of split the blame between him and me for my elimination, he was still a good buddy of mine, and I really wanted him to win because also he hadn't really left the country. I thought that would be really cool. Also didn't really like Rick at all at the time. Peter, I didn't, he was a nice guy, he was just kind of riding Rick's coattails, so I wasn't really rooting for him. I thought that would have been such a cheap win. Also, we got to skip 3 episodes, and I thought that was BS. Allie and Shane, I didn't really give them much credit on the bus due to their showmance. Interestingly, though, watching the show back, I'm really rooting for Allie now, and it's not just because we're so close. I really think she is such an underestimated player, and I say that as somebody who wildly underestimated her. I didn't realize how much was going on. Like, I didn't realize all of what she knew, all of what she'd figured out, all of her strategy that had been going on. A decent amount of it has been cut out, but like, I feel like she was really, really playing the game and was like the most well-rounded player in terms of knowing things and playing strategically. And also, I really wanted a girl to win from day one. It was never included me saying that, but starting episode 1, I was like, I want a girl to win this game, even if it isn't me. And so, like, watching back, I'm like, dang, like, I wildly underestimated her. Really gonna root for her. Also, like, one of my biggest regrets is writing her off episode 1 because, like, I think we could have had, like, a really cool and strong alliance. I think we could have been a really strong team. And I just kind of didn't even consider her after episode 1. I think I talked about why in another episode, but a lot of it had to do with Josh making big speeches about how I was not to be trusted, but it involved her, so I just kind of lumped her in with that and was like, this girl is too emotional. I don't want anything to do with her because I'm not an emotional person, and all of her emotions freaked me out. But anyway, now I'm not that. Now I can see she actually is a great person and a great player, and I messed up on that, but rooting for a girl to win. Another question a lot of people have not actually been asking me personally, but I've been seeing a lot of discourse about it online, and I want to nip it in the bud. A lot of people are saying, and I don't know if they really believe it, but they're just kind of spouting the conspiracy, that the producers made the my elimination, be the way that was with the tiebreaker twist to keep Janae on. Because she was the farthest away from the correct answer. So people are saying that the producers scrambled and decided last second to give Peter the power to choose who they wanted to get off because they knew he wouldn't pick her, and the producers wanted to keep her on because she's good for views and good for ratings because she has truly an astonishing amount of fans. And I just want to say that is not true. That did not happen. It might seem like things are made up on the fly, and to some extent maybe they are, but in terms of people's eliminations and tiebreakers and stuff like that, they have it all written out beforehand, because like, this is a thing where people are playing a game for money, and the idea is that it is supposed to be fair, and there are a lot of lawyers involved, and there is a lawyer present at all of the eliminations, and we can ask the lawyer questions if we have time, and there were contracts, and there were briefings, and there were so many conversations had. All of the rules regarding the tiebreaker, I guarantee, were decided beforehand, and the lawyer looked over them and approved them and made sure it was all good to go. So that was not a decision made just to keep Janae in. I don't know how many people believe it, but I have seen like a lot of comments and stuff like that about that. And I just want to be clear, as much as I love people suggesting that it shouldn't have been me, that's not the case. But I will say I've received so many comments and messages across a variety of platforms of people saying that they loved watching me, and that stuff means so much to me. You have no idea. Like, that is so nice to hear. Thank you so much. Keep doing it. Why not? Who cares? Keep doing it. I love it. That is really nice, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. I also received a comment about what the snack situation was on the bus, and I would love to address that. We had a lot of snacks. There was a fridge. It had like a gold door on it, and right above it, there's like kind of like a little platform. It's in between the two sets of seats, and it was a fridge. And we always kept snacks in there. Also, between all of the seats and underneath all of the seats, there were bins of snacks. So we constantly had candy, chips, fruit, sandwiches, all kinds of stuff. We were constantly supplied with liquids, water. I also had Monsters every day. We had quite a bit of Orangina. We had a lot of Coke Zero. We always had snacks and drinks on the bus, and we were eating constantly. So we were very well fed. Our main meals did not have a lot of seasoning. We did have a British catering group. We did at some point get a condiment basket. We blew through it in probably a day and a half. But nevertheless, they did try their best. It was very hard. This was a very logistically challenging show. So I will say they did try their best. My favorite meal, one night we had a chicken katsu curry situation. Delicious. I'd never had it before. Incredible. Changed my life. Now anytime I see chicken katsu curry on a menu, I'm ordering it. I think that's probably all I've got to say this episode. A little bit shorter one. But yeah, huge thing happening next week. So if you're not already subscribing, first of all, what are you doing watching a near 30-minute long video and not subscribing? That's pretty crazy. So make sure you do that. But you'll want to see my next video. Trust me, I think it'll be very good. It'll be very interesting, and it'll be very big news. So be sure to tune in for that. Also, why not hit me with a like? Why not hit me with a comment? Who cares? It'd be so nice. It'd be so nice if you did that. You don't have to. I'm not going to beg. But that would be really nice and really cool if you did. But anyway, thank you as always if you've made it this far in the video. That's so nice. You're the greatest, I'm sure. I don't know you. Thank you.